Hi, I'm Stephanie Sebbing with Quilt Addicts Anonymous, and today I'm teaching you how to make block 11 in the Dimensions Block of the Month series. And this is it. This is our final block. We have done everything once we finish with this one, and it's really fun. We are using purple for the first time, and we get all of these color changes in one width of fabric thanks to the lovely Kinkame shades in ombre fabric by Clothworks. And so, like a lot of the ones we've been doing, we are going to be cutting these into triangles. And the reason we do that is in order to get the color change to go from the bottom of the triangle to the top of the triangle, we have to first cut this across the width of fabric because the color changes from selvage to selvage. And then we're just going to cut off our corners so that way the color changes in the right direction. Creates a really cool effect, a little bit extra work, but it's so totally worth it. And make sure you're saving those triangles because next we're going to have a video on how to do an improvisationally pieced pillow to go with your quilt. Let's get started. You guys should be pros at this by now. Here's the drill. I've got the 45-degree line lined up with the bottom of our rectangle and the point of my ruler lined up with the bottom point of the rectangle as well. I'm going to slice this off and save it for later. All right, now I'm going to turn this to the side and I'm going to now line my 45-degree line up with what was the bottom but now is facing the left side, and the point is still lined up with the point of that rectangle, and we'll slice these off. Make sure you're sewing these together with the scant 1/4-inch seam and then trimming them down so that we can make an improvisationally pieced pillow when we finish this quilt. Now I'm going to repeat that process with all the rest of my rectangles. Well, I've got all my cutting stuff out. I'm going to go ahead and cut these squares down the center as well, going from point to point to create some half square triangles. So here's how I'm going to lay out this block. I'm going to start with my lightest fabric in the left position here, and then I'm just going to kind of keep going around like it's a pinwheel. So that way I'm alternating my lightest fabrics as I go around. And then to create some really good contrast, I'm going to start going around with the next darkest fabrics here. That way there's always really good contrast between the lighter and the darker, because light and dark are relative based on what they're next to. So we want to make sure this is the darkest of the lights, it's next to the darkest of the darks. So just like in block 9, where I really wanted everything to stay in exactly the same position as it was when I originally laid it out, I want that for this one too, because we're really being very specific about which one's light and which one's dark to form this block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these together in quadrants as well, sewing one together at a time. I'm going to go ahead and trim it at the same time as I sew and press and do all that stuff, so that way when we're done, we're just ready to sew it together. Let's get started. So the first thing I need to do is I need to set up my handy 1/4-inch or scant 1/4-inch seam. So I already have it set for a 1/4-inch seam, so I'm going to press a button to move my needle width, one needle width to the right. Check out your sewing machine to see if this does it on yours. If not, you probably can manually move your needle a little bit from left to right. So you want to move it a little bit to the right. That gives us a little bit skinnier seam and gives us a little bit of wiggle room when it comes time to trim to make sure we have an exactly perfectly square quadrant to work with. Now I'm going to take this block and I'm going to put them right sides together, and we're going to put it through the sewing machine. We're getting out my second cutting mat so that way I can lay it right on top of the block and just keep on working without having to worry about moving anything underneath. Like pretty much every other triangle we've done, we're going to go ahead and press these seams open. It makes for a really nice flat block when we're all done. Now it's important to note that when we sew these two together, that our gray triangle is going to be about 1/8 of an inch larger than our piece purple triangle. And I did that on purpose. It gives us a little bit extra wiggle room and we can trim it to size and have it be exactly the right way. So you're gonna flip these guys right sides together. Make sure that you are centering the purple block over the gray, and then we're ready to sew that together with our scant 1/4-inch seam. Go ahead and press this block open as well. First getting it for the back, and then the right side. I'm gonna go ahead and trim up this block. And what I wanna do is first align my 45-degree line with that center seam. Then I wanna kinda adjust it, moving it up and down along that seam line so that my 1/4 inch, or my dotted line for my 4.5 inch is coming right at the point where these two seams meet. And I wanna make sure that I've got extra fabric hanging off the 4.5 inch line, or that it's right on in all the other places where we have yet to trim. Once I've got that lined up, you can trim along the side and the top. Then you're gonna flip that around 180 degrees. And now we've just trimmed this side, so I'm gonna line my sides up exactly with 4.5 inches. And if we've done it right, our 45-degree line should already be going down that center seam, and it is, that's good. So now I wanna double check that, in fact, my seams where they come together on this 1/4 square triangle are right at the 4.5 inch line. They are. And so we're good to go. We're good to give this a little bit of trim. I'm not trimming too much off, but it really does make a big difference in the final product of your quilt. It lays a lot flatter and it's a lot easier to get everything together without puckers. And this is great. We've got all of our points coming right at those 45-degree angles, so we're gonna have a really perfect block. So now I'm gonna repeat those steps, sewing the rest of the quadrants of this block together. All right, we've got our 4 quadrants done, and now it's time to start sewing them together to finish this block and this quilt. So just like what we've been doing before, I want to make sure I pay careful attention when I'm pinning the corners together, because we want to make sure that these 45-degree seams are also coming together to make nice points. So we're going to flip this right sides together. And then I always look from above when I'm doing this, and I just make sure that these seams are right on top of each other. Don't drop it. That doesn't help you get anything sewn together accurately. So I just make sure that these seams are lined up right on top of each other like that. And once I'm happy with the arrangement, then I will put a pin through the right side of that seam allowance and then repeat the process on the other side, making sure that when I pull this back that those seams are right on top of each other. And then when I look at it from above, it's really easy to tell on this one because half of the seam is lighter and half of the seam is darker and they're opposite. So it's real easy to tell when you look from above if that is lined up accurately or not. Let's repeat that with the bottom, then we're ready to sew. So we're done with our scant 1/4 inch seam, so I'm going to go ahead and move that back to my regular 1/4 inch seam and start sewing. As always, I always sew a couple of stitches in with that top pin in place to secure that before I remove it. That'll keep everything from shifting around on you. Same deal at the bottom. Once that needle is securely in the first side of that seam allowance, only then do I remove my pin, and that keeps your points nice and in line as you're sewing. All right, let's do that with the second half, and we're done. The moment of truth where you want to check and sort of pull your seams apart and check your joins. Make sure they're as close together as possible. The center one is the one that's most important because that's where all your seams are going to be converging when we're done. I like the way we're looking, so I'm going to press my seams underneath the darker of the purple triangles. we're going to be using the 2 pinning method that we've been using all along to make sure that center is absolutely perfect. All right, so I'm going to flip these right sides together, and we're going to be putting a pin right at the tip of where these come together and where these come together, and that will make sure that all our points are nice and lined up in the center there. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is stick my pin in right above where these all come together, right there. I'm going to take a look on the other side, make sure I got it, and yep, it's right above where all these seams are coming together. And then I'm going to put it back in right above where these seams are coming together. Then I'm going to finagle it around a little bit until I can feel those seams locking because we press these in opposite directions. Now, holding this upright between my thumb and my forefinger, I'm going to take my second pin and I'm going to put that through the right side of that seam allowance, making sure to catch all these seams. That should keep everything in place as I sew. And then I'm also going to pin these sides together using the same techniques as we did when we were sewing our halves together to make sure that those seams are lined up right on top of each other, so that way our points are nice and in line as well on the outsides. All right, this should be the last seam, unless we screwed up. Hopefully we won't. All right, get those first couple of stitches in place. And I can actually feel my feed dogs kind of resisting a little there. All right, so I'm going to slow down a little bit as I get to the center, because I'm going to try to sew just to the right of where all those fabrics come together, so that hopefully we can do this in one shot. This is how it goes. All right, it is moment of truth time. Oh, perfect. All those points are coming together right at the center. I mean, some of them I guess aren't like totally perfect, but man, this is as close as it is gonna get. I am really happy with that. I'm gonna go ahead and press this open and call it a day. If your center wasn't perfect, go back to video 9 and get some tips on how to fix it. We went through that in that one, and just a little bit of extra stitching, and we were able to fudge it a little bit and make it work. All right, now just like with all the others, we're gonna finish this off with a little bit of Mary Ellen's Best Press to make it lie nice and flat. We did it, we're all done. We've finished our final block for the Dimensions block of the month. I hope you've enjoyed this quilt. Make sure you follow your pattern instructions to learn how to put this all together. And stay tuned, because we're going to do one more video on how to do an improvisationally pieced throw pillow to go along with this. We're gonna have a couple of different sizes in the book, so you can make it whatever size you want. But the main thing is you get to make up your own design. So make sure you stay tuned and watch that video. Make sure if you've been, we have all of our extra little cast-offs when we were doing our trimming. Make sure you trim those or sew these together with the scant 1/4 inch seam and trim them up, and then you will be all ready for that coordinating throw pillow. I really hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial series. If you want to make this pattern, you can get the pattern at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. It's called Dimensions. It's in the block of the month section. And we also have a limited supply of kits. So if you have really enjoyed these Kinkame shades, where you can get all this cool color variation from one width of fabric, go check that out. We're going to have those available for a limited time. And if you've enjoyed this, make sure you please hit the subscribe button. You will be able to see lots of other great quilting tips and tricks. We've got videos for lots of our other Quilt Addicts Anonymous patterns, as long as tips and tricks and videos to help you become a better quilter. We've got everything from how to sew an accurate 1/4 inch seam all the way to binding your quilt, and we're adding new videos all the time. So hit the subscribe button and get lots more free video tutorials coming your way. Thanks so much for following along with Dimensions. I'm Stephanie Sebbing from Quilt Addicts Anonymous, and happy quilting.